Good morrow. Today be Wednesday, April 23rd, 2026, and verily, 'tis National Talk Like Shakespeare Day, which, if thou'st think on it, is but a fine excuse to speak a little differently than usual, and see who notices. Welcome to Wait That's Random, This Day in History. I'm your host, C.L. Burns, voice actor, audiobook narrator, and your guide through the odd and unexpected corners of history. Let's dive in. On April 23, 1635, the Boston Latin School was established, the first public school in what would become the United States. At the time, education wasn't something broadly available. It was limited, structured for smaller groups. But this marked a shift towards something more accessible, a place designed not to teach but to prepare. Students studied classical subjects, language and rhetoric, skills meant to shape how they thought and communicated. And what stands out about this moment isn't just the school itself, it's what it represents. Because systems like this don't just appear fully formed. They begin with small, structured attempts that grow over time, and eventually they become something expected. And sometimes, even when something is established and widely accepted, changing it doesn't go the way people expect. In 1985, Coca-Cola made a bold decision. They changed their formula. After years of competition, especially with Pepsi, they believed a new taste could win people over. So they introduced what became known as New Coke. And on paper, it made sense. Taste tests supported it. Data supported it. But the reaction wasn't what they expected. People didn't just dislike it. They rejected it. Strongly. Because it wasn't just about taste, it was about familiarity, identity, something people felt connected to. And changing that, even with good reasoning, didn't land. What makes this moment stand out isn't just the decision, it's how quickly it became clear it wasn't working. Because sometimes improving something on paper doesn't mean people want it changed. And sometimes what seems like a system or process ends up producing something completely unexpected. At one point, a race involving a fax machine produced a result that technically beat physical competitors. Not because the machine moved faster, but because the information it sent arrived instantly. And depending on how you define the rules, that counted. Which sounds strange, but it raises an interesting question. What are you actually measuring? The movement or the result? Because once technology enters the equation, those lines can blur. And what feels straightforward at first suddenly isn't. And while systems evolve and change, some voices remain recognizable no matter how much time passes. Which brings us to a birthday. William Shakespeare was born on April 23, 1564. His work has lasted for centuries, not just because of the stories, but because of how they're written, the rhythm, the phrasing, the way ideas are expressed. Even now, people recognize it instantly, which is rare, because most things change over time. But some ways of communicating just stick. It's interesting how these don't seem connected at first, but kind of are. A system begins and becomes expected. A familiar thing changes and people push back. And a process produces a result no one quite anticipated. It makes you wonder how often the way something is defined matters just as much as what actually happens. Anyway, those are a few things that crossed my path whilst I wandered through April 23rd. Return on the morrow, and we shall see what next doth appear. If you'd like to hear more of my work or explore the books and projects I've been a part of, you can find it all at waitthat'srandom.com. I'm C.L. Burns, and I appreciate you stopping by. I'll see you tomorrow.